I have trouble slowing down, and often the inability to slow down means sometimes you lose focus on the right things. And in growing businesses, sometimes you have to face those things head on, and everything is a season. There's hard seasons, there's easy seasons, but sometimes it's like, hey, we're going to be grinding out for the next few months, and we have to go into it as a family and know that like, hey, I might have to find work time when people are sleeping. That's okay. But we have to call out what's important and then keep those things top of mind, whether that's a date night with my wife, whether that's making sure that I'm present with my son, when he's home from school or home from camp or whatever, just creating that space and allowing yourself the time to do that. Giving yourself a little bit of grace, right?
Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more integrated and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thanks, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Brad Springer. Brad, thank you for joining us. Would you like to kick things off by introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. My name's Brad Springer. I'm out of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I have a pretty interesting journey that started in hospitality and then found my way into software and never looked back. And now currently working in AI implementation for small to medium-sized businesses across North America.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the journey that brought you to where you are today, and then talk a little more about your business, what you're doing for your clients, what you're doing with AI.
Yeah, so I definitely didn't have we'll say a normal journey to sales and software. To be honest, I started out of college, had no idea what I wanted to do. I actually worked in a lumber yard for a while, driving a forklift, just figuring it out, and spent some time in the hospitality industry working for camping, and then spent about 4 years working in marketing with Chick-fil-A. And throughout that time, one thing that I always loved was the experience of customers. How do we make just an incredible experience for someone who is walking into a restaurant or walking into a camp or, just having a lunch meeting? So 2012, as I was kind of considering my next steps with Chick-fil-A, the market turned and things slowed down greatly. So I kind of had this moment where the world delivered me a choice of kind of like, hey, what do you want to do next? Where do you want to go? And I wasn't sure, and I was really interested in technology. I've always been. And I had a friend who had talked about a startup he had been a part of, and just kind of, it resonated with me. The journey, I always kind of called it, if you have drive and if you have a desire and a passion, there's nothing between you and making it happen. So funny enough, this is, about 2012, probably October. I didn't know how to code to save my life. So I found a neighbor down the street who worked at IBM and made a deal with him that every Wednesday for 2 hours, I would bring him, whether 12 pack of beer, Bojangles, dinner, whatever. And we would spend time learning how to code. And I learned how to do basic coding. I learned, how to run cron jobs and just how to be enough to get my foot in the door somewhere. And after about 3 months of working with him to learn how to be useful in a startup environment, I got an interview, and I always joke with my old boss, I kind of Kool-Aid man my way in and was just like, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I remember looking at them and saying, hey, I don't care if you pay me. I would like you to pay me, but I want to be a part of this. And that's how I got into startups. And that's how I got into software. And the rest is history. I got in, learned about all of it, and then just every day was something new. Then stayed with that company for 6 years through a few acquisitions and still connected with those folks. It was a wild ride.
And talk to us a little bit more about Bob.
Yeah. So Bob.pro is an AI services company. So our goal is to help small to medium-sized businesses transform with AI. So how do you actually implement AI in your business to help with operational drag, to help scale your company without hiring a bunch more people? And how do you do it thoughtfully? So we work with businesses from healthcare to industry or industrial, just all kinds of different businesses. But we come in and look of what's going on. How do we help and assist you to use AI so we can remove workflows and things that people honestly don't really want to be doing, to help kind of bring them what we say above the line to do the things that people are best at, making decisions, judgment, relationships. And it's been really awesome. I mean, the customers we work with are customers who are looking to scale and looking to care for their people and do that with AI. So it's been really neat to be able to come alongside and create new types of experiences and customer care while companies are being able to scale and grow more revenue without hiring more people. And then when that happens, you can take care of the people you have all the more. So it's been really fun to do that.
Great. What kind of size are your customers for that?
Yeah, so we focus right now anywhere from 10 employees up to 200 employees is kind of our focus, specifically from employee range. And then we have some companies that are doing a couple $1 million in revenue up to about 150 to 200 million in revenue.
Perfect size for needing that because they haven't got their internal resource.
This is an area of business that not a lot of people are focusing on. There's a lot of competition for the enterprise eyeballs, but this is an incredible market of businesses that are interested but aren't sure how to go about it. So finding a trusted partner who's actually interested in your outcomes and ties their success to your outcomes, it's been a really neat way to open up conversations and doors to talk with people about it.
Quick request to the audience. If you're enjoying these conversations, please click subscribe. And Brad, talk to us a little bit about what family looks like for you.
Yeah, so my family, so I have a wife, a son, and a black lab. So my wife and I have been married for about 20 years. We have 21 coming up this year. She is a very patient and loyal person because she's put up with decades of me in startups and, kind of this world of adventure when it comes to starting new businesses. And then I have a 9-year-old son who loves soccer, who is just all about it. He's wide open. And then he actually, which is part of my story later, but he actually is adopted, which impacted my wife and me a ton, impacted my work and everything when we went through that kind of journey together. And then we have a black lab named Molly, who's 4, who keeps us all on our toes.
So the timing question based on when we're actually recording the podcast is who's your son supporting?
Goodness, at 9, often it's who's winning, but he is pulling for England right now pretty hard. So he's a big Premier League fan and he loves Liverpool. So he is pulling for the Lions pretty hard.
Perfect. That's good to hear. We need all the support we can get, in the semis, hopefully make it to the finals and the winning. And what does the health look like for you? And for health, that can be sleep, nutrition, fitness, mental health, physical health, however you look at it.
So one of the things I struggle with is slowing down. So I have always been kind of a go, go, go type person. And probably over the last 15 years, even more specifically, probably the last decade, when I think about health, it's kind of creating space to slow down a little bit and allow yourself to breathe. Whether that's physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, what that looks like, I've had to kind of create space to do that and create space to exercise, space to read, journal. And I generally do that early in the morning or late at night. But what that looks like for me specifically is, I'll throw this thing called PIES that kind of grounds me. And it's something I go through most days. And it just stands for how are you doing physically? How are you doing intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually? And so it's just an easy way for me to kind of stay grounded throughout the day, throughout the week, because those are kind of 4 areas. If you're doing okay, or at least you're cognizant of those 4 areas, you're thinking right, or at least you're thinking about the right things. So I generally do that because it's a repeatable thing that's easy to top of mind. It doesn't take much time to just say, hey, how are you doing in those 4 ways? I spend a lot of time reading for pleasure, for business, but usually about 15 to 30 minutes a day I'll read, and that's how I'll close out my day because that will just allows your mind to wander and just kind of take a break. And I start most days with prayer and meditation just to kind of be quiet and calm the mind before you jump into the day. And then physically, I kind of do 2 things. One, I try to exercise a few days a week, and whether that means just going on a walk. I had back surgery in March, so exercise for me right now looks a little different than it used to, but I'm working my way back in. But for now, it's just creating space to go on a walk without technology. And just walk and look around and listen. But once I'm back at it, I generally do a challenge a quarter. So that might be a marathon. That might be a long bike ride. I like to ruck a lot. So walking with weighted backpack, but usually I'll do some sort of, hey, I want to go canoe this far. I want to run this far, and I'll set something a quarter. And then that dictates my exercise regime for that time. And I'm always looking towards like, all right, it's coming. Like I got to ruck a marathon or I got to do this race. And it keeps it kind of interesting and fresh to where it's not like, well, I just run all the time. It's like, no, I'm training for this thing, whether it's camping or a hike or whatever. It just kind of keeps me motivated.
I like that. So that's a nice one, quarterly goal. And what do you like to do for fun, apart from running and hiking with backpacks and things like that?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a tinkerer. So I love to tinker in the garage. Like, years ago, spending so much time in software and building things that are software, you don't do a lot with your hands sometimes. So I decided one day, probably 15 years ago, that I was going to learn how to do leather work. So I decided to make a wallet and then make a bag. And then it turned into just kind of off and on tinkering of it was fun to go out and make something or make a gift for someone, but you had to kind of slow down, pay attention to detail, put some music on, but stuff like that. I love just getting out there, but outside of stuff like that, where it's just tinkering, jack of all trades, master of none. When it comes to tinkering, that's me, but spend a lot of time outside hiking. I love to bike. Anything that kind of gets you just disconnected for a little bit. My family and I love to go fishing. We love spending time on the water when we can. And we play a lot of soccer, as I mentioned, with my son. So there's a lot of fierce competition in the backyard with a 9-year-old who is now better than his mother and father. So just play, at the end of the day, we just play a lot. And I think that's important. One of the co-founders I work with now always talks about how we're grown-up kids sometimes, right? And you have to remember that playing is still really important. It just looks a little different. So as a family, we spend a lot of time just playing together, and that generally leads to a deeper connection, just to go out and play and be present with each other.
I love that. I think that's 100% right as a way to connect as a family. And how does a sort of integrated life look for you across those 4 different areas?
Yeah. So I would say, because my wife, she has a pretty demanding job as well. So we are definitely kind of moving and grooving at the same time together. So what that looks like is we kind of have I'll call it a family operating system. There's a reality there that when we're all running hard as a family, if we don't kind of have a true north to kind of come back to, things can get kind of messy real quick. So we kind of have an operating system as a family where we, my wife and I, we have to keep a calendar. We have to, family rhythms in place to make sure that we're having our family dinners and our date night together. But often outside of just pure communication and making sure we're talking to each other, it looks like understanding the priorities of family and the priorities of work and then putting them in their right spot. And I think sometimes, I mentioned earlier, I have trouble slowing down, and often the inability to slow down means sometimes you lose focus on the right things. And in growing businesses, sometimes you have to face those things head on, and everything is a season. There's hard seasons, there's easy seasons, but sometimes it's like, hey, we're going to be grinding out for the next few months, and we have to go into it as a family and know that hey, I might have to find work time when people are sleeping. That's okay. But we have to call out what's important and then keep those things top of mind, whether that's a date night with my wife, whether that's making sure that I'm present with my son, when he's home from school or home from camp or whatever, just creating that space and allowing yourself the time to do that. Giving yourself a little bit of grace, right? It's okay. We're all we're gonna fail together. We're gonna win together. But just give yourself a little bit of grace to have time with your family. Work will always be there. It will always be there waiting and asking for more. So if you don't call that truth out, you get in trouble often. And I've learned that from plenty of experience.
I think that's also true. And what has been a pivotal moment in your life?
Probably the adoption of my son is outside of, getting married. That was pretty pivotal moment when we got married. But, my wife and I and we're super open about this, but, we were unable to have kids. And that's a pretty intense thing to go through when you never think about that growing up, or when you get married, it's just oh, you do the thing. So, we were in our 30s and we're like, hey, let's have a family. And that didn't happen. Right. So we both were like, well, let's adopt. That'd be fantastic. But to get to that point, when you go through something like that, I always tell people you kind of have 2 paths with your partner. It's you can't do that. You're going to drive away or together. That was my experience. I won't say there's only 2 paths, but my experience was we were going to come together in this and fight through it, or it was going to drive us apart. And, we chose to kind of lean in together and lean into the journey and the pain. And at the end, we came away with our son, and it was incredible. And I would go through it 1,000 times, because I know it's on the other side. But that moment was super impactful for me, because that's, often when I think about work, if I believe in the mission or the product, and I believe in the people, and they believe in me, and we're doing these things together, like, and you lean in together, like, you can do a lot of really cool stuff. And my wife and I were able to get through this together, and we came out closer than we've ever been. But I think that's very true in work as well. Like, startups are hard, right? Like, like, there's no magic button, right? Like, it's a grind, and it's hard, and it's, you got to do the things over and over and over. But if you're doing it with people that you trust, and you're doing it with people who you want to be doing it with, you can accomplish some pretty cool stuff. But you have to make that decision. You have to say, I'm going to do this with you, and I got your back, and you got my back. And we're going to be mad at each other sometimes, sure. Are we going to celebrate together? Absolutely. But when you make that decision and kind of burn the ships, there's no going back. And I just think that part of our life, like, burn the ships, is a major mantra in my life. It's just like, if you're going after something, like, don't leave yourself a way to get out. Like, commit and go. So yeah, that was a pivotal part of my life that impacted me personally and in business.
Yeah, and there's definitely nothing easy about being an entrepreneur. That's for sure. And what's one piece of advice you'd give for an aspiring entrepreneur?
Man, I'm just going to say the first thing that came to my mind is just fail fast. Don't be afraid to, like, lean in and fail. And in the world we live in today, and the technology that has become available to us, especially in the last 8 months, you can fail faster than you've ever been able to before, in a good way, right? Like, the speed to failure is much faster. And that means the speed to information and the speed to knowledge is it's faster than it's ever been. And the ability to do that means the ability to iterate and change quickly. And that is a gift that the current kind of technology stack has given us that, 10 years ago, failing is always painful, right? But the speed in which you can fail and the speed in which you can learn in a startup was already really fast. But now with the new technology that's available to us, especially in this kind of newest season with AI, like, you can do it even faster, and it's okay. And again, give yourself grace. Like, it's okay to try something, be smart about it, act with data, take calculated risks, but jump in.
That's absolutely perfect advice. And how can people find you?
Yeah. So 2 ways. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me at Bob.pro. So we're, on LinkedIn, I'd love to connect with you there. And then Bob.pro, you can go there and literally talk to one of our Bobs and all about what AI transformation looks like. I have one other piece of advice that it's worth noting, because I tell myself every day, and I think this one's lost often, but it's okay to be vulnerable. When you go into work with people, it's okay to be vulnerable with your other business partners and let them in on ways to win together. Because I think it's so common to go at it alone mentally. And I don't think that's how we were made to be. And I find that when I am open and honest with the people I'm trying to build business with, and they're open and honest with me, our ability to love and care for each other and compete and win together exponentially goes through the roof. But I think it's a learned behavior. I don't think it comes natural, unfortunately, for most people. It was a learned behavior for me. So anyways, I want to mention that because I think it's important.
Well, great advice. And thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.